Who was Vasily Zaitsev? Vasily Zaitsev was a World War II Soviet sniper that fought in the Battle of Stalingrad. He was born in 1915 in a tiny village in the Ural Mountains of Russia. In 7 years later, the Soviet Union was formed, and then he so he was born before World War One. He lived through World War II, and in 1945, at the end of World War II, he was 30. So after the war, he married a lady named Zinaida, and she was Ukrainian. And after the war, he moved to Kiev, Ukraine, and he died on December 11, 1991, 15 days before the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And that was when Ukraine became free from the Soviet Union. So ironically, he died in Ukraine before it was its own country. And he was buried in the Kiev Military Cemetery. 25 years ago, in 2001, the famous actor Jude Law played Vasily Zaitsev in the movie Enemy at the Gates. The world famous actress Rachel Weisz played a girl named I'll remember the name, she was an actual real person. In the movie, at the very end of the movie, they connect in it, and then it ends, and it makes it seem like they got married or what have you, or her name was Tanya. So in the movie, Tanya and Vasily, it looked like they hooked up at the very end, and then in the movie. But in real life, she was told he was dead, and he was told she was dead. So she ended up marrying some other dude, and Vasily ended up marrying Zinaida, or Zina. That's usually the nickname for anybody named Zinaida. And so the Kiev Military Cemetery, where he was buried in 1991, 15 years later, for whatever reason, I'm not 1,000% sure, but his body was exhumed and moved to Stalingrad, which was then renamed Volgograd. So this famous hero of the Soviet Union, medal, which is basically the equivalent of like Medal of Honor in America, he died in Kiev, Ukraine. Then Ukraine became independent, and then he was moved 15 years later to Russia, formerly in the city of formerly known as Stalingrad, now as Volgograd. And but his widow, Zinaida, she died in 2011, which was 3 years before Russia invaded Crimea, and 11 years before the Russian full invasion of Ukraine. And at the start of the invasion in February 2022, Russia bombed with rockets or missiles or something the TV station just north of the Kiev Military Cemetery, which is also just south of Babi Yar. I happen to know this because I've been there several times in Kiev. And in that attack, 4 people were killed, I guess, in the TV station. And the tower, that maybe they were trying to hit out the tower. The tower is a really huge red and white tower just north of Kiev cemetery. But so the headstone for Vasily Zaitsev has it's a really nice, beautiful laser etched onto granite picture of him, and it says "Hero of the Soviet Union" in Russian under his name, or under his photo. And his wife is buried right next to where he used to be buried in that same plot. And even though she died, uh, let's see, because she died in 2011. Um, he had already previously been moved, unless I'm wrong about that. It's possible he was moved right after she. Anyway, so here is a World War II hero of the Soviet Union, born in Russia, married to Ukrainian. They both died in Kiev, Ukraine, the Zina and Vasily Zaitsev. And Russia invades Ukraine and bombs this really close to the cemetery. And it's possible shrapnel or gunpowder or some sort of rocket fuel sprayed the cemetery. And it's very possible that the headstone, because it's so close to that station, that the headstone of Vasily Zaitsev and his widow, or his wife, was either hit with shrapnel, hit with some sort of gunpowder equivalent or whatever, or rocket fuel. I don't know, because I don't know, but I'm just saying it's not impossible. This is who Vasily Zaitsev, super famous, internationally famous in military circles, and nationally famous in Europe. And he's famous enough that they made a movie that Jude Law played him, and there's at least 2 books written about him. There's also a museum in Volgograd, formerly known as Stalingrad, with his sniper rifle in the museum right there in Volgograd. I haven't been to Stalingrad or Volgograd, and I won't be allowed to because I'm married to Ukrainian and we're at war. And um, if an American applies, or if an American wants to go to Russia, they have to spend money for an application to receive a visa before they can enter. And if I did, they would keep the money and reject. They would say your request was denied, and they would keep whatever money. And it's probably $150, $200, $300. I don't know exactly what it is, but I would lose my money and every single time. They would just wouldn't let me go in. But it would be interesting to see the Stalingrad battlefield and history area, because history is interesting. But the problem is there's politics involved, and Russia is an enemy to Ukraine, and they are killing innocent people, and it's a sad story. And there's probably a lot of soldiers that would rather not fight against Ukraine that are also dying, and but they're forced to. They're cannon fodder for the Russian army, and it's sad all around. Everybody's dying. Everybody's dying, and it's sad. So that's kind of the information I have. What's interesting is, so Baba Yar is a Holocaust memorial from World War II. That's where the Nazi army massacred 33,000 people in like 48 hours in Kiev, in this ravine, and they dumped their bodies in this ravine. And it's an international memorial. There's people from all over the world that go there, and there's the memorials in Russian, Hebrew, and I think English. I'm not 100% sure. I've been there a couple times. I can't remember exactly if it's in English, but I know it's in Hebrew and Russian. I don't think it's actually in Ukrainian. And just south of that is where that TV station is in the tower, and then just south of that is the Kiev cemetery, and there's another cemetery. I think it's called the Baikova Cemetery, where there's a lot of famous Soviets and Ukrainians, people buried there. It's very interesting. History is very interesting, and history is in the making right now. where we're witnessing, the world's witnessing in real time because of high technology, what's going on. It's not like World War II where, people with snail mail probably didn't know what was going on. Everybody knows in the world what's going on. And so the mistakes of the leaders cannot be hidden as well. And I hope the war ends soon. Um, we know what's going on. We know that it shouldn't have started, and it should end as soon as possible. Yesterday was February 22nd, 2026. Today's the 23rd. So yesterday marked the 4 years since Russia started their full invasion of Ukraine. And this is the region I'm in. I'm 1 hour south of the border. The region I'm in was one of the first regions they invaded, which is the Chernihiv region. And there's a beautiful city there, gorgeous city. Oh my gosh. And it's been a lot of buildings destroyed. I've seen some of the buildings destroyed there. It's just sad. And so I don't know, because it's history in the making and we're living it, the whole world's watching. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? And I don't have any predictions. I'm not smart enough to know where everything's going to go, but all we can do is hope and pray that it will end, because there's no reason that innocent people should die. No reason for it. Good, innocent people. It's a tragedy. So here's an interesting thing. The word riba is the word for fish in Ukrainian and Russian. So the American country singer named Reba McEntire, her name's Fish. And no one in this country's ever heard of her, but if they heard of a famous American country singer named Fish McEntire, they'd probably laugh, just because they wouldn't understand that. There's probably a lot of girls named Reba, named after Reba, because she's so popular and famous. And I think she's a nice person, I guess, as far as I know. She seems like a good person. But her name's Fish. Fish McIntyre. It's very cold, and it's snowing, and there's still at least one person ice fishing, if you can believe it.